Please, Mom, open the door. We're family, please. My daughter's face was pressed against the reinforced glass of the nursing home entrance, distorted by the pressure and the streaming tears that cut tracks through her expensive foundation. Her fists pounded against the wood, a frantic, rhythmic thudding that echoed in the quiet lobby. I stood on the other side, my hand resting on the cool metal of the latch, feeling the vibrations of her desperation. She looked so small from here. Just a few minutes ago, the lawyer had left, his briefcase heavy with the papers that proved my ex-husband, the man who had forgotten me for decades, had left me everything. Millions. And suddenly, my daughter, who hadn't visited in 3 years, was sobbing on the welcome mat. I looked at her, really looked at her, taking in the panic in her eyes. I am 67 years old now. 3 years ago, when I was 64, this same woman threw me into this place like a bag of old clothes because, in her words, I was useless. I took a deep breath, smelling the antiseptic cleaner of the hallway and the faint scent of lavender from my own wrist. I didn't feel anger. I felt a cold, heavy finality. I looked her in the eye, tightened my grip on the handle, and instead of opening it, I turned the deadbolt. Click. The sound was louder than her screams. I turned my back on her and walked away. But wait, how did we get here? How does a mother reach the point where she can close the door on her own crying child? To understand the silence of this hallway, you have to understand the noise of the house I was thrown out of. Let me tell you from the beginning. It started on a Tuesday, one of those gray, damp afternoons that makes your joints ache deep inside the bone. I was living in the guest room of my daughter Elena's house. I had been there for 6 months, since my small pension couldn't cover the rising rent of my apartment. I tried to make myself small. That is the tragedy of getting old when you have no money. You try to occupy less space, breathe less air, eat less food, just so you don't disturb the rhythm of the people you raised. I was in the kitchen trying to help. That was my mistake. I always tried to help, to prove I wasn't just a burden, to prove I still had value. I was peeling potatoes for the stew Elena wanted to make. My hands, knobby and stiff from arthritis, were struggling with the peeler. It was a new, modern gadget with a slick plastic handle that I couldn't grip properly. I remember the smell of the kitchen. It didn't smell like food. It smelled of lemon polish and stress. Elena walked in, her heels clicking aggressively on the pristine tiles. She had just come home from work, phone pressed to her ear, complaining to a friend about her schedule. I tried to hurry. I wanted the potatoes done before she hung up. My hand slipped. The peeler flew across the counter, and the bowl of water and potato skins tipped over. It crashed to the floor. Dirty starch water splashed onto the cabinets, onto the floor, and, worst of all, onto Elena's beige suede shoes. The silence that followed was terrifying. She lowered the phone slowly, her eyes tracing the puddle of water spreading toward the refrigerator. "Mom," she whispered, but it wasn't a gentle whisper. It was a hiss of air escaping a tire. "I'm sorry, Elena," I stammered, my knees cracking as I tried to bend down to clean it up with the hem of my apron. My hands were shaking so bad I couldn't even grab the bowl. "I'll clean it. The handle slipped." "Stop," she shouted, causing me to flinch. "Just stop. Don't touch it. You'll just make it worse. You always make it worse." She grabbed a roll of paper towels and began aggressively wiping her shoes, her face twisted in a grimace of pure disgust. It wasn't the anger of a bad day. It was the anger of accumulated resentment. I stood there, clutching my hands to my chest, feeling like a naughty child, hot shame burning my cheeks. "I was just trying to help with dinner," I said softly. Help? She stood up and threw the wet paper towels into the sink with a wet slap. You call this help? I have to work 10 hours a day, Mom. Then I come home and I have to clean up after my children, and now I have to clean up after you? It's like having another toddler in the house, except toddlers learn. You're just regressing. The word hung in the air. Regressing. Elena, that's not fair, I said, my voice trembling. I do the laundry. I fold the clothes. I try. You try, but you're useless, Mom, she exploded. The words seemed to rip out of her throat. Look at you! You can't peel a potato. You forget to turn off the bathroom light. You walk too slow. You tell the same stories. You're dead weight. I felt as if she had slapped me. I backed up until I hit the edge of the counter. The kitchen, usually so cold and modern, felt like it was shrinking, suffocating me. I raised you, I whispered, tears finally spilling over. I wiped your tears. I paid for your college with the money your father never sent. I worked double shifts so you could have those shoes you're so worried about. And that's your job. You're a mother. That doesn't mean I owe you my life now, she yelled back. She ran a hand through her hair, looking at me with a mixture of pity and exhaustion that was far more painful than hatred. Look, I can't do this anymore. Mark and we've been talking. My heart stopped. The cold from the floor seemed to travel up my legs. Talking about what? About living arrangements, she said, her voice dropping to a flat, businesslike tone. This isn't working. It's affecting my marriage. It's affecting the kids. You need professional care. Or at least a place where people have the time to deal with this. She gestured vaguely at me, at the spilled water, at my old cardigan with the missing button. You want to send me away? I asked. The realization was a physical blow to my stomach. It's a nursing home, Mom. Green Valley. We visited it last week. You visited it? Without telling me? It's for the best, she said, turning away to fill a glass of water, refusing to look at me. You'll be with people your own age. You won't have to worry about cooking or cleaning. You can just sit. Just sit. That was her vision of my future. Sitting in a chair until I died. Out of her way, out of her sight. I'm not invalid, Elena. I'm 64. I can still live. I just need a little patience. I don't have patience, she screamed, slamming the glass down. I don't have time. I want my house back. I want my life back. I can't carry you anymore. You have nothing, Mom. You have no money, no house, no assets. You are entirely dependent on us, and frankly, we can't afford the energy anymore. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw the truth. She didn't see her mother. She didn't see the woman who sat up with her when she had fevers, or the woman who held her when her first boyfriend broke her heart. She saw a bill. She saw a chore. She saw a useless object taking up space in her designer kitchen. Pack your things, she said, her voice cold again. We're taking you there on Thursday. Mark has already signed the papers. She walked out of the kitchen, her heels clicking away, leaving me standing over the spilled potato water. I looked down at my hands. They were shaking, yes. They were wrinkled, yes. But they had worked so hard for so long, and now they were being dismissed as useless. I bent down, my joints popping, and picked up the peeler. I wiped the floor with the rag, slowly, painfully. I didn't cry then. The pain was too deep for tears. It was a hollow ache in the center of my chest. I realized then that the bond of blood is not as strong as the inconvenience of caring. That night, lying in the guest bed that felt less like mine than ever, I stared at the ceiling. I could hear Elena and Mark laughing downstairs, watching television. They were relieved. They had solved the problem. The problem was me. I was 64 years old, and my life, according to the person I loved most in the world, was over. I was trash to be taken out on Thursday. But little did I know, and little did she know, that the universe has a very strange sense of humor, and the wheel of fortune was about to spin in a way neither of us could ever predict. Thursday arrived with the punctuality of an executioner. There was no reprieve, no sudden change of heart, no tearful apology from my daughter over breakfast. Instead, there was just the sound of packing tape ripping off the roll, a harsh, tearing screech that grated against my nerves. Zip, rip, zip, rip. That was the soundtrack of my life being dismantled. I stood in the center of the guest room, clutching a small porcelain figurine of a dancer my father had bought me in Madrid when I was 12. It was one of the few things I had left. "Mom, you can't take all that junk," Elena said from the doorway. She was checking her watch, tapping her foot. "The movers are only taking the bed and the dresser. Everything else has to fit in 2 suitcases. The room at Green Valley is cozy." Cozy. "It's not junk, Elena," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "This is my life." "It's dust collectors," she countered, grabbing the figurine from my hand and tossing it carelessly into a donation box she had marked Goodwill. "We don't have room for it here, and you won't have room for it there. Let's go. Mark is waiting in the car." The drive was suffocating. I sat in the back seat of Mark's pristine SUV, the leather cold against my legs. They sat in the front, discussing their weekend plans, talking about a dinner party they were hosting on Saturday. They were already living in a future where I didn't exist. I looked out the window as the familiar streets of my neighborhood blurred by. The bakery where I bought bread for 40 years. The park where I taught Elena to ride a bike. I was a ghost haunting my own history. When we pulled up to Green Valley Senior Living, the name felt like a cruel joke. There was no valley. There was barely any green, just a patch of manicured lawn that looked like plastic, and a sprawling beige brick building that smelled of institutional cleaner and boiled cabbage, even from the parking lot. It didn't look like a home. It looked like a warehouse for people who had expired. Inside, the air was still and overly warm. The receptionist smiled a bright, fake smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Welcome, Isabel. We're so excited to have you join our family," she chirped, handing Elena a clipboard of forms. "I am not your family," I thought. "My family is signing me over to you like a package." We walked down the long corridor to room 302. The floor was shiny linoleum that squeaked under Elena's heels. We passed open doors. I saw an old man staring at a television that wasn't on. I saw a woman sleeping in a wheelchair, her mouth open, a string of drool on her chin. Is this it? Is this what I become now? The room was small. A twin bed with a scratchy synthetic blanket, a nightstand, and a window that looked out onto the dumpster and the employee smoking area. "It's nice, right?" bright Elena said, forcing a cheerfulness that made my stomach turn. She didn't look at me. She looked at the walls, the floor, the ceiling, anywhere but my eyes. "Elena, please," I said, grabbing her arm. My fingers dug into her expensive blazer. "Don't leave me here. I'll stay in my room. I won't cook. I won't make a mess. I'll be invisible. Please." She pulled her arm away, flinching as if I had burned her. "Mom, stop. We've been over this. It's already paid for. You need care I can't give." "I don't need care. I need love," I cried out, my dignity finally shattering. "Stop making a scene," she hissed. Then she checked her phone. "Look, I have to get back for a conference call. The nurses will help you unpack." She leaned in and gave me a quick, stiff hug. Her perfume, Chanel, a bottle I had bought her for Christmas 2 years ago, filled my nose. It was the scent of betrayal. "We'll visit on Sunday," she said. She walked out the door. I watched her go. I watched her walk down that long hallway, her stride confident and relieved. She didn't look back, not once. She didn't visit on Sunday, or the Sunday after that. The first year was a blur of gray. That is the only way to describe it. Time in a nursing home doesn't move in a straight line. It loops. Breakfast, pills, television, lunch, nap, pills, dinner, sleep, repeat. You lose the sense of who you are. I learned to be quiet. I learned that if you complain that the water is too cold during the assisted shower, the aide sighs and treats you roughly, scrubbing your skin until it's raw, so you shiver and say nothing. I learned that if you ask for a second cup of tea, they act as if you've asked for a diamond necklace. So you drink the first lukewarm cup and stare at the wall. The loneliness was a physical weight pressing down on my chest until it was hard to breathe. I waited for the phone to ring. Every time I heard the shrill trill of the hallway telephone, my heart would leap. Is it Elena? Is it the grandkids? It never was. The first Christmas, I received a card. No visit, just a card with a printed signature, "Love, Elena, Mark, and the kids." No photos, no handwritten note, just a generic card with a snowman on it. I sat in the common room, watching other residents open gifts from their families, watching daughters comb their mother's hair, and I felt a cold stone harden in my stomach. It wasn't just sadness anymore. It was becoming something else, a quiet, simmering rage. By the third year, I had stopped waiting. I was 67. My arthritis was worse, partly from the dampness of the room and partly from the lack of movement. I walked with a cane now. I wore the shapeless sweatpants they provided because my own clothes had gone missing in the laundry, stolen, I suspected, by the staff who looked at us with a mixture of boredom and contempt. I sat by the window in the common room every afternoon, watching the cars go by on the distant highway. I was useless. That was the word Elena had used, useless. I repeated it in my head like a mantra. I am useless. I am nothing. Then came the Tuesday that changed the world. It was raining again. I was sitting in my usual chair, nursing a cup of coffee that tasted like burnt rubber. The television was blaring a game show. Suddenly, the double doors of the main entrance opened. Usually, visitors were casual, jeans, parkas, tired looks, but this man was different. He wore a charcoal suit that looked like it cost more than the entire building. He carried a leather briefcase and walked with an air of authority that made the nurses straighten their uniforms and tuck in their hair. He walked straight to the reception desk. I watched, mildly interested. Probably a health inspector, I thought. Or maybe a relative of the wealthy woman in room 105. The receptionist pointed toward the common room, toward me. The man turned. He scanned the room, his eyes passing over the sleeping figures, the wheelchair circle, until they locked onto me. He didn't look away. He walked straight toward me, his shoes clicking sharply on the linoleum. "Mrs. Isabel Rossi?" he asked. His voice was deep, respectful. It was a tone I hadn't heard addressed to me in 3 years. I looked up, tightening my grip on my cane. "Who asks?" "My name is Mr. Henderson. I am the lead attorney for the estate of Alejandro Rossi." The name hit me like a bucket of ice water. Alejandro, my ex-husband. The man who had walked out on me 30 years ago for a younger woman, leaving me to raise Elena alone on a waitress's salary. The man who became a tech mogul, a millionaire, while I clipped coupons to buy milk. I hadn't spoken to him in decades. "What about him?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "Is he coming to mock me too?" "Mrs. Rossi, Alejandro passed away last week." I blinked. I felt nothing. No grief. He had been dead to me for a long time. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said automatically, though I wasn't. "But why are you here? I have nothing to do with him." Mr. Henderson pulled a chair close to mine, ignoring the sticky stain on the seat. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick document bound in blue paper. "That is not entirely true, Mrs. Rossi. Alejandro never remarried. He never had other children. And, it seems, he never updated his primary will from 40 years ago. But more importantly, 3 months before he died, he added a codicil, a specific instruction." He pushed the paper toward me. I fumbled for my reading glasses, my hands shaking. "He knew, Isabel," the lawyer said softly. "He had investigators. He knew where you were living. He knew how you were living. He knew about your daughter." I looked up at him, shocked. He knew I was here? He knew everything. In his final letter, he wrote that his biggest regret was leaving the only woman who loved him when he had nothing. He wanted to make amends. Mr. Henderson paused, looking around the depressing room, at the peeling paint and the sad plastic plants. Mrs. Rossi, as the sole beneficiary of the estate and the liquid assets, "You are the sole heir to $82 million." The room went silent. The game show on the TV seemed to mute. The buzzing of the lights stopped. 82 million. I looked at my hands. The same hands that couldn't peel a potato. The same hands that Elena had slapped away. The hands of a useless woman. "Are you sure?" I whispered. 100%, he said. "The funds are already available. I have a car waiting outside. You don't have to stay here another minute. We can take you to the Ritz or buy you a house or whatever you wish. You are a very wealthy woman, Isabel." A slow heat began to rise in my chest. It started in my stomach and spread to my fingertips. It wasn't just relief. It was power. For 3 years, I had been trash. I had been a burden. I had been a child to be scolded. I stood up. My knees popped, but I stood straighter than I had in years. I looked at the lawyer. "Mr. Henderson," I said, my voice steady and strong, "I don't want to go to the Ritz just yet. I have to make a phone call. But first..." I looked down at the stained sweatpants I was wearing. "Do you have a phone I can use? My daughter canceled my cell phone plan 2 years ago to save money." He handed me his phone immediately. I dialed the number I knew by heart. It rang 4 times. "Hello?" Elena's voice, harried, annoyed. "Who is this?" "Elena, it's Mom." "Mom? Why are you calling me from a strange number? I'm at work. I don't have time for this. Is it an emergency? Did you fall again?" "No, Elena," I said, a cold smile touching my lips for the first time in years. "I didn't fall. I'm actually standing up very tall. I just wanted to tell you, your father died." There was a silence on the other end. "Oh, well, that's sad, I guess. But he didn't leave us anything, did he? We checked years ago. He hated us." "That's what you thought," I said. "Listen to me, Elena. I need you to come to Green Valley right now." "Mom, I can't. I have a meeting." "Come now or don't come ever again," I said, and I hung up. I handed the phone back to Mr. Henderson. I sat down and smoothed my hair. "Now," I told the lawyer, "we wait." And when she arrived, 40 minutes later, flushed and angry, expecting to scold me for interrupting her day, she didn't find the cowering old woman she expected. She found the nursing home director sweating, the lawyer standing guard, and her mother sitting like a queen on a throne of plastic, holding the keys to a kingdom she had assumed was closed forever. She ran to the glass door, saw the lawyer, saw the papers, saw the look on the director's face. She put the pieces together instantly. Elena always had a nose for money. She started crying. She started pounding on the glass. "Please, Mom, open the door. We're family, please." And that brings us back to the moment where I stood, hand on the deadbolt. The vibration of her pounding fists traveled up my arm. I looked at her distorted face. I remembered the potato water on her suede shoes. I remembered 3 Christmases alone. I didn't open the door. I turned the lock. Click. I turned to Mr. Henderson. "Get me out of here," I said, "and buy this building. I want to fire the cook." As we walked away toward the exit, leaving my daughter screaming my name to a closed door, I took my first breath of freedom. It tasted sweet. But the story doesn't end here. Oh no. Money is a powerful tool, and I had a lot of work to do. Elena thought this was just about money? No, this was about a lesson, and class was just beginning. I am 64 years old, though my bones feel a century older. My own daughter threw me into a nursing home 3 years ago because, in her words, I was useless to her. For 1,000 days, I rotted. Then the impossible happened. My millionaire ex-husband died and left me everything. When the truth came out, my daughter rushed to the glass doors of the facility, weeping false tears, begging to be let back in. I looked at her, I looked at the life she had condemned me to, and I closed the door in her face. The silence inside the Lincoln Town car was heavy, but it was a luxurious kind of silence. It didn't hum with the buzzing of fluorescent lights or the wheezing of oxygen tanks. It was the silence of money. I sat in the back seat, sinking into leather so soft it felt like butter against my cheap, rough sweatpants. The contrast made me want to laugh and cry at the same time. Here I was, Isabel Rossi, worth $82 million, wearing pants that had a bleach stain on the thigh and shoes with worn-out Velcro straps. Mr. Henderson sat opposite me, his hands folded on his knees. He didn't look at my clothes. He looked at me with a terrifying amount of respect. "Where to, Mrs. Rossi?" he asked gently. I looked out the tinted window. The nursing home was a beige speck in the rearview mirror, but the smell of it, that mix of antiseptic, boiled vegetables, and despair, still clung to my skin. It was in my hair. It was in my pores. "A hotel," I rasped. My voice sounded rusty, unused to giving orders. "The best one you know." "I need to wash this place off me." "The Ritz-Carlton, then," he said to the driver. As the car glided over the potholes that usually jarred my spine in the nursing home van, I looked down at my hands. They were trembling, not from Parkinson's, but from adrenaline. I kept seeing Elena's face pressed against the glass. Her mascara was running. Her mouth was open in a scream I couldn't hear through the soundproofing. Did I feel guilty? I searched my heart, expecting to find the mother's instinct that usually forgave everything. I found only a dull ache. She hadn't cried when she left me there. She hadn't cried when I begged for a phone call. She was only crying now because the ATM she thought was broken had suddenly spit out a fortune, and she was on the wrong side of the transaction. We pulled up to the hotel. It was a palace of limestone and gold light. The doorman, a young man in a pristine uniform, opened the car door. He faltered for a fraction of a second when he saw me. He saw the gray hair, the stained pants, the cane. He saw a homeless woman stepping out of a limousine. But then he saw Mr. Henderson behind me, and his expression snapped back to professional neutrality. "Welcome, madame," he said. I stepped onto the pavement. My legs felt weak, but I forced my chin up. I walked into the lobby. The air smelled of fresh lilies and expensive wax. The marble floor reflected the chandeliers above. People turned to stare. A woman in a silk dress whispered to her husband. I knew what they were thinking. Who let the beggar in? Mr. Henderson leaned close to me. "Ignore them, Isabel. You could buy this hotel and turn it into a parking lot if you wanted to." The check-in was a blur. Mr. Henderson handled everything while I stood by a pillar, clutching my cane. I felt small. I felt like an imposter. But then the manager came out from behind the desk. He didn't look at my clothes either. He looked at the black credit card Mr. Henderson had just handed him. "Mrs. Rossi, we have the presidential suite prepared. Would you like a private escort so you are not disturbed?" "Yes," I whispered. "Please." The room was larger than the entire floor of the nursing home. It had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city rain. There was a bowl of fruit on the table that looked too perfect to eat. But I didn't care about the view. I walked straight to the bathroom. It was a sanctuary of white marble. The bathtub was deep and claw-footed. I turned the taps. Hot water, steaming, scalding hot water rushed out. I didn't wait. I stripped off the gray sweatpants and the oversized t-shirt that said Green Valley Recreation on the back. I threw them into the corner of the room. I wanted to burn them. I climbed into the water. It stung my dry skin, but it felt like heaven. I scrubbed. I scrubbed with a loofah and a bar of soap that smelled of lavender and honey. I scrubbed until my skin was red. I washed my hair 3 times, trying to get the scent of the cafeteria out of it. I cried then. I sat in the tub, the water rising to my chest, and I sobbed. I cried for the 3 years lost. I cried for the woman I used to be. I cried for Alejandro, the man who broke my heart 30 years ago and tried to fix it from the grave. "Why now, Alejandro?" I asked the steam. "Why didn't you come yourself?" I stayed in the water until it turned lukewarm. When I finally stepped out and wrapped myself in a robe that was thick and soft as a cloud, I felt reborn. Frail, yes. Old, yes, but clean. There was a knock at the main door of the suite. I tightened the belt of the robe and walked out. Mr. Henderson was there, holding several shopping bags and a small white box. "I took the liberty of having a stylist send up some essentials," he said, placing the bags on the velvet sofa. "And this." He handed me the white box. It was a brand new smartphone. "Your number has been transferred," he said, "and Mrs. Rossi, it has been ringing for the last 20 minutes. I looked at the sleek black screen. It was silent now. "Thank you, Arthur," I said, using his first name for the first time. "You can go to your room. I need to do this alone." He nodded and left. I sat on the edge of the king-sized bed. I opened the phone. 47 missed calls. 12 text messages. All from Elena. "Mom, please pick up. Mom, I was just scared. I didn't mean to lock the door. Mom, Mark is driving us to the city. Where did you go? Mom, we need to talk about the estate. There are taxes you don't understand." Taxes. That was her concern. Not my health, not my feelings. Taxes. The phone rang again in my hand. The picture ID was a photo of Elena and me from 10 years ago, back when I was still useful, back when I watched her children for free. I slid my finger across the glass to answer. I brought the phone to my ear. I didn't say hello. I just listened to her breathing. "Mom? Oh my God, Mom!" Elena's voice was high-pitched, frantic. "Where are you? The director said you left with a lawyer. Are you crazy? You don't know that man. He could be scamming you. Tell me where you are. Mark and I are coming to get you right now." I walked over to the window. The city lights were blurring through the rain. "I am safe, Elena," I said. My voice was calm. It scared me how calm it was. "Safe? You're confused. You have dementia, Mom, remember? The doctor said you get confused. You can't sign legal papers. Anything you signed is invalid. I'm your power of attorney." "I revoked that power an hour ago," I said. "Mr. Henderson filed the paperwork. You have no power over me anymore." There was a stunned silence on the line. Then the tone changed. It shifted from aggressive to wheedling, that fake sweetness she used when she wanted me to bake cookies for a school fundraiser. "Mom, look, I know you're upset. I know the nursing home wasn't ideal. But we did it for you. We were struggling. We didn't have a choice. We love you. The kids miss you. Leo asks about Grandma Isabel every day." "Leo, my grandson, he was 6 when I left. He must be 9 now." "Don't use his name," I said sharply. "You told Leo I was sick. You told him I was too tired to see him. I know, Elena. The nurse told me what you said to him in the lobby that one time you brought him and left him in the car." "That's a lie," she was screaming now. "It doesn't matter," I said. "I'm tired, Elena." "Mom, listen to me. $82 million it's a burden. It's dangerous. You need family to help you manage it. Mark knows about investments. We can buy a big house, a huge house, with a suite for you on the ground floor, no stairs. We can hire a private nurse. We can be a family again. Just tell me where you are." I closed my eyes. I imagined it. A big house. Me in a suite. Them spending my money. Waiting for me to die. Checking my pulse every morning with disappointment. I don't need a house, Elena. I have this hotel room. And I don't need a family that only loves me when I have a checkbook. Mom, don't do this. You're being spiteful. I am being a mother, I said. I am teaching you the lesson I should have taught you 20 years ago. You cannot plant weeds and expect to harvest roses. Mom! Elena, do you remember the porcelain dancer? The one my father gave me? What? Who cares about that stupid doll? I cared, I said softly. You threw it in the Goodwill box. You said it was dust. Well, Elena, I'm the dust now, and you are allergic to me. I hung up. I didn't turn off the phone. I blocked the number. Then I blocked Mark's number. Then the house line. I walked over to the bags Mr. Henderson had brought. I pulled out a cashmere sweater. It was soft, a deep burgundy color. I pulled out a pair of silk trousers. I dressed slowly. I looked in the mirror. The woman staring back was still old. Her face was lined with the map of her suffering, but her eyes were dry. I picked up the room service menu. I hadn't eaten a meal that wasn't boiled or pureed in 3 years. My stomach growled. I picked up the hotel phone. "Room service? Yes. I want a steak, medium rare, and a bottle of red wine, the most expensive one you have, and a chocolate cake with 3 candles on it." "3 candles?" the operator asked. "Is it a birthday, ma'am?" "No," I said, looking out at the city that was now mine. "It's a funeral. I'm burying the woman who couldn't peel potatoes." I sat in the velvet armchair by the window, waiting for my steak, watching the rain wash the city clean. I knew this wasn't over. Elena wouldn't stop. She was like her father in that way, greedy and relentless. She would come for me. She would try to declare me incompetent. She would drag me through court. Let her try. I touched the cold glass of the window. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't just waiting to die. I was preparing for war. and I had 82 million bullets. The steak arrived under a silver dome, carried by a waiter who moved as if he were walking on clouds. When he lifted the lid, the steam rose up, smelling of rosemary and seared fat, a scent so rich it almost made me dizzy. I sat there in the velvet chair, the city rain weeping against the glass, and I cut a small piece. It was pink inside. Perfect. For 3 years, I had eaten gray meat and instant potatoes that tasted like wet cardboard. Now, as I put that piece of steak in my mouth, I closed my eyes. I chewed slowly. It wasn't just food. It was dignity. It was the taste of being a person again, not a patient in bed 4B. I drank the wine. It was dark and heavy, warming my chest, loosening the knot of tension that had lived between my shoulder blades since the day Elena dropped me off at the nursing home. I ate the cake, too. I blew out the invisible candles I had imagined. Happy birthday, Isabel. Happy new life. I slept that night in the center of the king-sized bed. I woke up 3 times in the dark, reaching for the call button that wasn't there, terrified by the silence. At the nursing home, someone was always screaming or coughing, or the television was blaring. Here, the silence was so deep it felt like a blanket. I had to touch the silk sheets to remind myself I wasn't dead. I was alive, I was wealthy, and I was alone. The next morning, the war I had predicted arrived before I had even finished my coffee. Mr. Henderson called the room phone at 9 o'clock. "Mrs. Rossi," he said, his voice tight, "I am downstairs in the lobby. We have a situation. Your daughter is here." I felt my heart give a painful lurch, a traitorous reaction of an old mother who's still, deep down, wanting to see her child. But then the coldness returned. "She is creating a scene, Isabel. She is demanding to see you. She has brought your grandson." My hand froze on the coffee cup. Leo. She had brought the boy. She was using a 9-year-old as a battering ram to break down my door. It was a low tactic, lower than I thought even Elena would stoop. "Let them up," I said. "Are you sure we can have security?" "No, Arthur. If I hide, she wins. If I hide, she thinks I am weak. Bring them to the suite." I hung up. I stood and walked to the mirror. I was wearing a cream-colored blouse and black trousers the stylist had sent. I looked elegant. I looked like the woman Alejandro had married 40 years ago, before the wrinkles, before the betrayal. I put on my lipstick. I painted my mouth like armor. When the knock came, I didn't rush. I walked slowly, leaning on my cane, listening to the rhythm of my own steps on the plush carpet. Tap, step, tap, step. I opened the door. Elena stood there. She looked frantic. Her hair, usually so perfect, was pulled back in a messy knot. She was wearing a trench coat that I knew cost more than my stay at the nursing home for a month. And beside her, looking small and terrified, was Leo. He had grown so much. He was wearing a baseball cap and clutching a video game console. He looked up at me with confused eyes. He didn't recognize the woman in the silk blouse. He was looking for the grandma in the stained sweatpants. "Mom!" Elena pushed past Mr. Henderson, dragging Leo with her into the room. "Oh, thank God! We were so worried. Why did you block us?" She tried to hug me. She came at me with open arms, smelling of rain and expensive perfume. I took a step back. I raised my cane, creating a barrier between us. "Stop," I said. "Do not touch me." Elena froze. Her arms dropped. She looked around the suite, her eyes widening as she took in the luxury, the view, the untouched fruit bowl. I saw the calculation in her eyes. I saw her adding up the price of the room, the price of my clothes. "Mom, please, don't be like this," she said, her voice trembling. "Look, I brought Leo. Leo, say hi to Grandma." The boy looked at his mother, then at me. "Hi, Grandma," he mumbled. "Hello, Leo," I said softly. "You look tall." "Mom said you were lost," he said. I looked at Elena. Her face flushed red. "I wasn't lost, Leo," I said, keeping my eyes on my daughter. "I was thrown away. There is a difference." Elena let out a choked sob. "Mom, how can you say that in front of him? Can we please talk privately, please?" I nodded toward the bedroom door. "Leo, honey, why don't you go in there and play your game on the big TV? There are chocolates on the pillow." Leo ran. He was a child. He didn't want to be part of this tension. When the bedroom door clicked shut, the air in the living room grew heavy. Elena dropped the act. Her shoulders slumped. She fell onto the sofa, burying her face in her hands. "It's a mess, Mom. It's all a huge mess." I remained standing. My legs hurt, but I wouldn't sit. I needed to tower over her. "What is a mess, Elena? The fact that you lost your free babysitter 3 years ago? Or the fact that you just found out the babysitter is a millionaire?" "Stop it!" she cried, looking up. Her mascara was smeared. "It wasn't about the money. We couldn't take care of you. You were forgetting things. You left the stove on that one time. We were scared for you." "I left the stove on once," I said, my voice steady. "Once in 10 years. And for that, you sold my house. You took my furniture. You put me in a room with a woman who screamed all night. And you never visited. Not for Christmas, not for my birthday. We were busy. Mark lost his job." "And yet," I said, pointing the tip of my cane at her coat, "you are wearing a Burberry coat. I know that check, Elena. That coat costs $2,000. That is 4 months of diapers at the nursing home." She pulled the coat tight around herself, defensive. I got it on sale." "Lies," I whispered. It was always lies. "You told me you couldn't afford a private nurse. It smelled of urine, Elena. The food was slop. They bathed me with a hose like a dog." "I didn't know," she screamed. "You didn't know because you never came," I shouted back, my voice cracking. The anger was finally spilling over, hot and bitter. 3 years, Elena. 3 years I sat by that window waiting for your car. Every silver car that passed, my heart jumped. And it was never you. You came yesterday only because the lawyer called. You came for the check." She stood up, wiping her eyes angrily. "So what? So what if we need the money? Is that a crime? We are your family. You're going to die soon anyway. What are you going to do with $82 million? Buy more silk shirts? You owe us. I took care of you for years." The room went silent. Even the air conditioning seemed to stop humming. "I owe you?" I asked, my voice dropping to a whisper. "Yes, you were a burden. You were heavy and slow, and you told the same stories over and over again. It was exhausting, and now you have this lottery ticket, and you want to cut us out? It's cruel. It's selfish." I looked at her. I really looked at her. This woman I had carried in my womb. This woman I had nursed through fevers, whose heartbreaks I had soothed, whose college tuition I had paid by scrubbing floors after Alejandro left. I saw a stranger, a greedy, hollow stranger. Mr. Henderson stepped forward from the corner, clearing his throat. "Mrs. Rassi, would you like me to remove her?" "No," I said. "I want her to hear this." I walked closer to her. She flinched, but I didn't raise my hand. I just looked into her eyes. You are right, Elena. I am old. I am slow. I tell the same stories. But I was never useless. I was your mother. And you are a disappointment. Not because you are poor, but because you are poor in spirit. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a checkbook. Elena's eyes locked onto it. Her breath hitched. She stopped crying instantly. How much? I asked. How much is a mother worth to you? Mom, it's not like that. Stop lying, I snapped. Just tell me the number. How much debt do you have? How much to fix your life? 2 million, she whispered. The mortgage, the credit cards, Mark's business loans. 2 million would clear us. I opened the checkbook. My hands were shaking, but I forced them to be still. I wrote the date. I wrote her name. I wrote $2 million and 00/100. I tore the check out. The sound was loud in the quiet room. Rip. I held it out to her. She reached for it, her fingers trembling. She couldn't help herself. The greed was stronger than the shame. She took the piece of paper and clutched it to her chest. Thank you, Mom. Oh, God, thank you. I raised my hand. This is it, Alina. This is your inheritance. I am giving it to you now. What? She looked confused. This buys your silence, I said. This buys my freedom. You take this money and you leave. You do not call me. You do not visit me. You do not bring Leo here to manipulate me. As far as you are concerned, I died in that nursing home 3 days ago. But 82 million is not for you, I said. I am rewriting my will this afternoon. You get nothing else. Not a penny, not a vase, not a photograph. You wanted to be free of the burden? You are free. She stared at the check, then at me. She was doing the math. 2 million now, or fight for more later. She looked at my face and saw the stone wall I had built. She realized she had lost. She put the check in her pocket. She didn't look at me. She looked at the floor. Can I say goodbye to Leo? Take him with you, I said. I will not let you poison him against me, but I will not kidnap him. Go, before I change my mind and tear that check into confetti. She turned and ran to the bedroom. I heard her voice, sharp and hurried. Come on, Leo, we're leaving. Put the game down. They came out a minute later. Leo looked sad. He waved at me. Bye, Grandma. Goodbye, my love, I whispered, my heart breaking all over again. Elena didn't look back. She marched to the door, clutching her coat, clutching her $2 million, the price of her mother's soul. The door slammed shut. I stood there for a long time. My legs gave out, and I sank onto the sofa where she had sat. The room smelled of her perfume. Mr. Henderson poured a glass of water and handed it to me. You were very generous, Isabel, he said quietly. Most people would have given her nothing. I gave her what she wanted, I said, staring at the closed door. She wanted cash. I wanted a daughter. We both go home empty-handed. I took a sip of the water. My hands were finally steady. The link was cut. The wound was cauterized. Arthur, I said, setting the glass down. Yes, Mrs. Rossi? Call the real estate agent, and call the nursing home director, not the one who runs it, the one who owns the company. What do you have in mind? I stood up, feeling the ache in my bones turn into something else. Fuel. Elena thinks useless means weak. I am going to show her what a useless old woman can do with $80 million. I don't just want to buy a house, Arthur. I want to buy the whole damn system. I want to make sure no one ever has to feel the way I felt in that room again. I walked to the window. The rain had stopped. The sun was trying to break through the gray clouds. Get the car, I said. We have work to do. Tengo 80 años, aunque el mundo decidió borrarme del mapa cuando cumplí los 64. Mi hija me encerró en un asilo bajo la excusa de que yo era inútil, una carga que desordenaba su vida perfecta. Pasaron 3 años de silencio, de sopa aguada y sábanas ásperas. Pero la vida da vueltas extrañas. Cuando mi exmarido, ese hombre complicado con el que no hablaba hacía décadas, falleció, se descubrió que yo era su única heredera universal, 82 millones de dólares. Ahora, mi hija está al otro lado de esta puerta de hotel de 5 estrellas, llorando y golpeando la madera. La miré a los ojos a través de la mirilla antes de abrir. Y supe que, aunque iba a abrir la puerta física, la puerta de mi corazón estaba a punto de cerrarse para siempre. Señor Henderson, abran la puerta, dije con una voz que no reconocí como mía. Era una voz de acero, no la voz temblorosa de la anciana de la habitación 4B. El abogado giró el pomo y la puerta se abrió. Elena entró como un torbellino, trayendo consigo el olor de la lluvia y de ese perfume caro que siempre usaba, una mezcla de jazmín y culpa. Detrás de ella, arrastrando los pies, venía Leo, mi nieto, mi pequeño Leo, que ya no era tan pequeño. Llevaba una gorra de béisbol y miraba al suelo, avergonzado. ¡Mamá!, gritó Elena, lanzándose hacia mí con los brazos abiertos. ¡Gracias a Dios! Estábamos tan preocupados. ¿Por qué nos bloqueaste? Pensamos que te había pasado algo. Levanté mi bastón. Fue un movimiento corto, seco, pero suficiente para detenerla en seco antes de que pudiera abrazarme. La punta de goma del bastón golpeó la alfombra persa con un sonido sordo. «No me toques, Elena», dije. «Quédate ahí». Elena se quedó congelada, con los brazos en el aire, como una marioneta a la que le han cortado los hilos. Sus ojos recorrieron la suite presidencial. Vi cómo sus pupilas se dilataban al ver las cortinas de terciopelo, el servicio de té de plata sobre la mesa, mi blusa de seda color crema. Vi el cálculo matemático en su mirada. Estaba sumando. Siempre estaba sumando. «Mamá, por favor, no seas así», dijo bajando los brazos, poniendo esa cara de niña regañada que le funcionaba cuando tenía 12 años. «Mira, traje a Leo. Él te extrañaba mucho. Leo, saluda a la abuela». El niño levantó la vista. Sus ojos eran oscuros, como los míos. Me miró con confusión. No reconocía a esta mujer erguida y bien vestida. Él recordaba a una anciana en bata que olía a naftalina. «Hola, abuela», murmuró. «Hola, mi amor», dije, y sentí cómo se me quebraba algo en el pecho. Quería correr y abrazarlo, oler su cabello, preguntarle por la escuela, pero sabía que si lo hacía, Elena ganaría. Ella lo estaba usando como escudo humano. «Estás muy alto, Leo». «Mamá dijo que te habías perdido», dijo él con inocencia brutal. Miré a Elena. Su rostro se puso rojo, contrastando con el maquillaje perfecto que llevaba. «No me perdí, Leo», le respondí sin dejar de mirar a su madre. «Fui descartada. Hay una gran diferencia». «Pero mira, cariño, en la habitación de allá hay una televisión enorme y acaban de traer chocolates. ¿Por qué no vas y te comes todos los que quieras mientras hablo con tu mamá?» Leo miró a Elena buscando permiso. Ella asintió rápidamente, desesperada por sacarlo de la línea de fuego. El niño corrió hacia el dormitorio y cerró la puerta. Cuando el clic del cerrojo sonó, el aire en la sala se volvió denso, pesado, irrespirable. Elena se dejó caer en uno de los sofás de cuero. Ya no fingía preocupación maternal. Ahora parecía una mujer acorralada. «Es un desastre, mamá», soltó, cubriéndose la cara con las manos. «Mark perdió el trabajo hace 6 meses. La hipoteca nos está asfixiando. Los niños necesitan cosas. Colegio privado, ortodoncia. No sabíamos qué hacer. Caminé lentamente hacia la ventana. La lluvia golpeaba el cristal. Me dolían las rodillas, ese dolor punzante de la artritis que nunca se va, pero me mantuve de pie. Necesitaba estar de pie. «Así que viniste por el cheque», dije, dándole la espalda. «No, vine porque eres mi madre», gritó ella. Se levantó y caminó hacia mí. «Mamá, te pusimos en el asilo porque no podíamos cuidarte. Eras difícil, olvidabas cosas. Una vez dejaste la estufa encendida. Teníamos miedo por ti. Era por tu seguridad». Me giré lentamente. Mis manos apretaron el mango del bastón hasta que los nudillos se pusieron blancos. «Una vez», dije en voz baja. «Dejé la estufa encendida una vez en 10 años, Elena. Y por ese error, vendiste mi casa, vendiste mis muebles, esos muebles que tu padre y yo compramos con tanto esfuerzo. Me metiste en una habitación compartida con una mujer que gritaba toda la noche pidiendo ayuda. ¿Sabes a qué huele ese lugar, Elena? Huele a orina vieja y a desinfectante barato. Huele a soledad». «Lo siento, no sabíamos que era tan malo», empezó a sollozar, pero sus lágrimas me parecían agua del grifo. «No lo sabías porque nunca fuiste», le corté, alzando la voz por primera vez. 3 años, Elena, 3 navidades, 3 cumpleaños. Me sentaba en el vestíbulo frente a la puerta de cristal, esperando ver tu coche. Cada vez que entraba alguien con un abrigo rojo, mi corazón saltaba pensando que eras tú, pero nunca eras tú. Solo viniste ayer porque el señor Henderson te llamó para decirte que ahora soy rica». Ella se quedó callada. No tenía defensa contra la verdad. Su mirada bajó hacia sus zapatos de diseño. «Mark dice que necesitas un tutor legal», murmuró ella, cambiando de táctica. «Dice que 82 millones es demasiado para una persona de tu edad. Que te pueden estafar. Que nosotros podemos administrarlo por ti, comprar una casa grande, vivir todos juntos, ser una familia otra vez». Solté una risa seca, sin humor. Sonó como hojas muertas crujiendo. «¿Una familia? ¿Como la que me dejó en la acera con 2 bolsas de basura llenas de ropa vieja? No, Elena, tú no quieres una madre. Tú quieres un cajero automático». Me acerqué a ella. Pude ver el miedo en sus ojos. Miedo a perder el dinero, no a perderme a mí. Observé su abrigo. Era un trench coat beige, impecable. «Bonito abrigo», dije tocando la solapa con un dedo. «Burberry, ¿verdad? Cuesta unos $2,000. «Lo compré en oferta», balbuceó. $2,000, repetí. Eso es lo que costaban 4 meses de pañales de calidad que el asilo no me daba porque el seguro no los cubría. Tuve que usar trapos, Elena, mientras tú llevabas Burberry. Ella retrocedió un paso, chocando contra la mesa de centro. «¿Qué quieres que haga?», gritó, desesperada. «Sí, cometimos errores. Sí, necesitamos el dinero. ¿Es eso un crimen?» «Soy tu hija. Tú me pariste. Me debes ayuda». El silencio que siguió a sus gritos fue absoluto. El señor Henderson, desde la esquina de la sala, carraspeó incómodo, pero yo no aparté la mirada de mi hija. En ese momento, vi a la niña que yo había criado, a la adolescente rebelde, a la mujer egoísta en la que se había convertido. Y sentí un vacío inmenso donde antes había amor incondicional. «Te debo ayuda», repetí suavemente. «Tienes razón. Una madre siempre ayuda a su hija a aprender las lecciones más duras». Metí la mano en mi bolso y saqué la chequera. Los ojos de Elena se iluminaron con una avidez que me revolvió el estómago. Dejó de llorar al instante. Fue casi milagroso. «¿Cuánto?», pregunté, abriendo la chequera sobre la mesa de cristal. «¿Qué? ¿Cuánto cuesta tu deuda? ¿Cuánto cuesta arreglar tu vida para que no tengas que volver a buscar a tu madre inútil?» Ella tragó saliva. Sus ojos iban del bolígrafo a mi cara. «2 millones», susurró.
Con 2 millones pagamos la casa, las deudas de Mark y aseguramos el futuro de los niños. Escribí la fecha con mano firme. Mi caligrafía era elegante, antigua, nada que ver con los garabatos de hoy en día. Puse su nombre completo, Elena María Rossi. Escribí la cantidad, $2 millones. Arranqué el cheque.
El sonido del papel rasgándose fue fuerte, definitivo. Lo sostuve en el aire, pero no se lo di. «Escúchame bien, Elena», dije con voz sepulcral. «Este cheque tiene un precio». Ella estiró la mano, temblando. «¿Qué precio?» «Si tomas este dinero, desapareces. No vuelves a llamar, no vuelves a visitar, no vuelves a usar a Leo para ablandarme». «Para ti, Isabel Rossi murió en ese asilo hace 3 años. Soy un fantasma. Y los fantasmas no dan dinero. Este es tu adelanto de herencia y tu despedida. No habrá más, ni un centavo más en mi testamento». Elena miró el cheque. Luego me miró a mí. Vi la duda en su rostro, pero duró apenas un segundo. La codicia ganó. Siempre ganaba. «Lo siento, mamá», dijo rápidamente, y me arrebató el papel de los dedos como si quemara. Lo guardó en su bolsillo como si temiera que yo fuera a cambiar de opinión. «Tenemos muchas deudas, lo entiendes, ¿verdad? Es por los niños». «Vete», dije, sintiendo un cansancio infinito que me pesaba en los huesos. «Llévate a Leo y vete». Ella corrió hacia el dormitorio. «Leo, nos vamos, apaga eso». Salieron 1 minuto después. Elena ni siquiera me miró. Tenía la mano sobre el bolsillo donde estaba el cheque, protegiendo su botín. Leo se detuvo en la puerta. Me miró con esos ojos tristes. «Adiós, abuela», dijo. «Adiós, mi vida», susurré. «Pórtate bien». La puerta se cerró. El golpe retumbó en la habitación y en mi alma. Me quedé de pie mirando la madera barnizada de la puerta cerrada. Había terminado. Había comprado mi libertad por $2 millones. Era barato, si lo pensaba bien. El precio de saber la verdad. «Señora Rossi», dijo el señor Henderson acercándose con un vaso de agua. Tomé el vaso. Mis manos no temblaban. Bebí el agua fresca y sentí cómo me limpiaba la garganta de las palabras amargas. «Estoy mejor que bien, Arthur», dije, girándome hacia él. «Acabo de perder 80 kilos de peso muerto». Me senté en el sillón de terciopelo y miré por la ventana. La lluvia había parado y un rayo de sol tímido se asomaba entre las nubes grises, iluminando los rascacielos de la ciudad. Me sentía vacía, sí, pero era un vacío limpio, listo para ser llenado con cosas nuevas. «¿Qué quiere hacer ahora?», preguntó el abogado. «¿Quiere descansar?». Negué con la cabeza. La energía empezaba a volver a mí, una chispa caliente en el estómago. «No, Arthur, ya descansé 3 años mirando una pared blanca. Ahora tengo trabajo». «¿Trabajo?». «Quiero que llame a la inmobiliaria», dije, señalando la ciudad con mi bastón. «No quiero comprar una casa para mí, quiero comprar el asilo». El abogado parpadeó, sorprendido. «¿El asilo donde usted estaba?». «Ese mismo. Y quiero comprar la cadena entera. Voy a despedir al director. Voy a contratar enfermeras que sepan sonreír. Voy a cambiar los colchones. Voy a asegurarme de que la comida tenga sabor y de que nadie, absolutamente nadie, sea tratado como un mueble viejo nunca más». Elena piensa que ser anciano es ser inútil. Voy a demostrarle lo que una vieja inútil puede hacer con 80 millones de dólares y mucho rencor acumulado. Me puse de pie, alisando mi blusa de seda. Me sentía poderosa, me sentía viva. «Traiga el coche, Arthur. Vamos a empezar la revolución». Miré la puerta cerrada una última vez. Ya no dolía. Era solo una puerta. Y yo tenía la llave de todo el mundo.